Hello, I'm Sam. I work in arts marketing, and I've been asked by a few people about Power BI and how you can use it in an arts marketing, particularly theatre setting. So rather than write a long blog post about it, I thought instead I'll make a video because a blog post takes 2 weeks to write, whereas frankly I can shit out a video in 30 minutes and be done with it. So I'm going to show you how to really basically use Power BI and how it can be useful kind of in your arts marketing world. Solid. So let's start with the data set, and this is the data set. So each line represents an item that's being purchased, whether that's a ticket, it might be a booking fee, that kind of stuff. So if you buy 2 tickets, you'll have 2 rows of data. And then I've picked out some of the most common kind of or useful, simple things we might want to have a look at. So I've just done tickets for this example: price, seat, date purchased, price type, so comp, concession, full price, the show name. So there's a couple of shows in here, both fake shows of mine, some event dates, then the event category, and then a booker ID. So for example, booker ID is a unique identificator for each individual booker. So for example, this person here has in fact bought 2 tickets. So far so good. So what we're going to do is we're going to load that into Power BI. I'm going to create a blank report, and this is going to gradually load up. No, I tried to do this video about 10 minutes ago and it crashed, which is super awkward. This is also my 3rd attempt at making this video. The first time sound cut out halfway through. Second time I inexplicably forgot what I was doing halfway through, and so just had to give up on that one. And then the previous time, the one 10 minutes ago, just crashed. Doesn't usually do that. Anyway, so I'm going to go into transform data. This is where I'm going to bring the data that we've just looked at into Power BI, and just give that a second to hopefully catch up. And I'm going to click new source, and I'm going to click text/CSV, which is my demo data. Let's open that up. There'll be moments, by the way, where things are happening but it's a bit slow, and so I have to kind of try and stall for time. So here's a preview of the data that it's bringing through. So it's essentially going, is this what you're expecting to see? Yes, it is. I'm going to click OK. I'm going to have a quick look at this data, essentially to check that Power BI has categorized each of the columns in the right way. So it's identified that price and a booker ID are both numbers, that price type, show name and event category are all kind of words, text fields, and the date purchased and event date are dates, which is kind of handy. That all looks good. I'm going to close and apply that, and that'll take us back into the kind of visual side of Power BI. And what should happen any second now is that it will start to have a think about that. And there we go. Will create connections in the model. It's bringing all the data through. This is a really small data set, I should say. So like the one I use at work has got in the region of 6 million lines. This has got, I think, 270, something like that. It's fairly tiny. 279 rows, yeah. It's a diddly data set. Also, I never use the word diddly in any of the other times I tried to do this. So what we're going to do is have a look at our data set over here. So here's all the information that we've brought through. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create some measures. So measures are a useful way of creating information that you can then do calculations with. If you want to get the proper version of what all these things are, then do either the Udemy course, which is really good, or read. But this is just to kind of demo how I use it, and I don't know any of the right terms. So I'm going to create a new measure, and the first thing I want to do is create the total value of tickets sold. So let's call this total tickets sold. So this is the total number of tickets sold. So that's essentially a count. Obviously it's all tickets. I'm going to go do a count of a price type in this particular instance, and that'll give me the total number of tickets sold. And And what I'm going to do is straight away I'm just going to drop in some data so we can start to see how this fits together. These are all the kind of visualizations which are options to me, which apparently is not opening in the way I expected. Let's have a look. What I want is a card. Not that one of those. So here we've got a card, and I'm going to bring total tickets sold in there. So we've sold 279 tickets across the whole data set. I'm going to do a tiny little couple of little amends to this. So I'm just going to make the number bold because I think that looks better, and I'm going to make the label into a colour because then it looks like I've thought about it and created a colour scheme. And I'm going to make the description a little bit smaller as well. And that I think I'm reasonably happy with that. Let's make that a bit smaller, and maybe a little less tall and a little more wide. Great. So total tickets sold 279. So that's a great start. I'm going to create another measure, and this is going to be the total value of tickets sold. So again, create a measure. Total value sold, and this time it's going to be the sum of the price, and I'm going to put that one in. And the first thing I'm going to do is just to change a little bit of the formatting. So I've got a little format panel up here, and this of course, as we know, is money, so I'm going to turn it into a currency. I'm going to make that currency into the English pound. If I can click the right thing. I don't think I clicked the right thing there. Hold on. So value sold. Yeah, I didn't click the right thing. So there's into English pounds, British pounds. And let's make that no decimal places. There we go. That took disproportionately longer than it should have done. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy my first total tickets sold into another box, and this time I'm going to get rid of total tickets sold and bring in total value sold. £4,999 worth of tickets have been sold across my data set. I'm then going to, from those two bits of data, create an average ticket yield. So again, a new measure, and let's call this one average ticket yield when it loads. Average ticket yield, and average ticket yield is of course the total value sold divided by the total tickets sold. Let's press enter on that, and again I want this to be a currency. I would like it to be in pounds. But this time I'm quite happy to have two decimal places because it's going to be a much smaller number. So let's copy and paste that one. And I'm going to get rid of total value told. I'm going to put in average ticket yield, £17.92. So far so good. I also want to know the total number of bookers. So again, I'm going to create a new measure, and let's create all this measure total bookers, and this measure is slightly different, so it's a distinct count of the booker ID. So that will give us our total bookers, and let's do another kind of copy. You notice I'm copying these boxes over time after time, which just helps in terms of keeping the formatting consistent. So there we go, average ticket yield is in. Let's delete that and put in our total bookers. So 123 bookers bought 279 tickets for £4,999, an average ticket yield of £17.92. So far so good. I'm going to just duplicate our total bookers again. And this time I'm kind of interested in the average number of days people booked in advance. So for this I'm going to do something slightly different. In our demo data I'm going to create a new column. And what I'm interested in is the number of days difference between the date it was purchased and the day of the event. So let's call this average days, not average, days booked in advance. And for this we're going to use a thing called date difference. So date difference, and it gives you these little pop-ups to just help you work out what you're meant to be putting with all these different formulas, which is incredibly useful when you realise it's there. So what's the date difference between the event date and the date purchased, and we want to know that by day. So that is essentially adding an extra column onto our whole data set that says if you tell me the number of days between the day of the event and the day the ticket was purchased. So we've created that. I'm going to make that a little bit wider just so you can see days booked in advance. Now I'm interested in what the average days booked in advance was. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new measure. And this is where I got tripped up the other day. I think I was just a bit tired when I was trying to do this video. I mean, I'm tired now. I'm always tired. God, that went harrowing, bleak. So this one's going to be average days booked in advance. And that, of course, is... yeah, see, missed a step. What I want is the total. The total days booked in advance first, which is of course the sum of days booked in advance. I should have done it as a measure first. It makes it a lot easier when you start doing massive data sets. And then I'm going to create one more measure. This one's going to be our average days booked in advance. Average days booked in advance, which equals my total days booked in advance divided by the total tickets sold. And hopefully this will work. So there we go. I'm going to copy and paste my total bookers. Oh no, I already have. That was the one I did earlier. And I'm going to get rid of total bookers and put in average days booked in advance. And you'll see it's minus 18.57. So that's 18.57 days before the event was the average that it was booked. We can adjust that. So if we go total, sorry, days booked in advance, we can just swap these two figures around. Let's do that, and this might just give us a bit of a better number. It'll still be 18.57, it just won't have the minus in front of it. There we go, average days booked in advance. So now we've got a range of 5 metrics, which is kind of lovely. What I'm going to do is I'm going to move that total tickets sold to the far left of my little pane. I'm going to move that one to the far right of my little pane, and then I'm going to select all of them. I'm going to format, and I'm going to distribute those horizontally, which looks great. So far so good. So I've got my kind of top line metrics, which is a really nice start. Then what I'm going to do is create a little bit of a table, just so we can have a look at individual performances. So I'm going to click table, and this is where I'm going to just drag this over here, and this is going to live kind of there. And in this table, I'm kind of in, what am I interested in? I'm interested in the event date. And at the moment, it's going to break event date into event year, quarter, month and day. I'm just going to change that and in the data options and change it into just the event date. So these are all the event dates where I had performances on. I'm then interested in how many tickets we sold for each of those days. I'm interested in the total value of tickets sold for each of those days, and I'm also interested in the average ticket yield for each of those days. Let's keep adding this information in, and what I'm going to do is just squash some of these columns. And there's loads of formatting stuff you can do as well, it's worth saying. So this looks a little bit higgledy-piggledy, but that's because I haven't spent a disproportionate amount of time trying to make it look prettier. So straight away we've got a little bit of a data table, and I was also going to add in the average days booked in advance in there as well. Lovely. You'll notice that's kind of massively out of the way over there, so let's just bring that in to like that. Great, so we've got a bit of a data table in there, and then underneath our data table what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some slices. So slices are a way of kind of chopping up the data. So let's add a slicer or two. The first slicer I'm going to add is based on show name. So here's the two shows in the data set, and there's ways of formatting everything in here. That's the thing I can keep trying to get back to. This isn't an ideal dashboard, but that's because you've got to spend a bit of time making them look good. And what this slicer means is if I want to see just what Sam Special Show did, I can do that and it'll adjust all the figures. If I just want to see what the Best of Sam 24 did, I can do the same and it'll adjust all the figures. Let's create a duplicate of that, and we'll put that underneath, and let's just unclick the Best of Sam 24. And I'm just going to get rid of show name in there, and I'm going to put in event category. So again, now I've got the option of having a look at all the shows at Late Night Cabaret, which of course in this example is just the Best of Sam 24, or all the shows that are just theatre comedy. So far so good. I've got some big top line metrics at the top. I've got a nice, really quick, fast, agile table in here as well. If I want to have a look at an individual performance, by the way, and I didn't have these bits in here, I can just click on it and it'll kind of bring the information up. Obviously I've got a lot of duplication in here as well. You could use slices instead of that, but essentially it means that the data feels dynamic and quite fresh and quite easy to use. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some coordinate data to the data I've already got. So here's one I prepared earlier. So you'll know, as you know, I've got all my seat identifiers in my main data set. So what I've done is create a new table. On the left I've got seat, and these all match the way that my seats are formatted in my data table. So this is a tiny 40-seater theatre in this example. And then what I've done with that is put an X and a Y value. So essentially this allows us to kind of map where each individual seat is, and hopefully, if this works, create heat maps, which everybody always really wants, without necessarily knowing how to use them or whether data is valid or not, but that's for a different day. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into transform data, and we're going to import that coordinate table. So again, new source, we're going to bring in a text CSV file, and we're going to bring in coordinates. Also worth saying, I forgot to say this in two of the other versions which I didn't use, most of the box office companies will be able to just send you this information, the coordinate data. Spectrix certainly can, I'm sure Ticketsolve can as well, or you can just make it yourself. It's really not that hard once you work out how it works. Obviously if you've got a crazy difficult auditorium to map, then you know, good luck. So again, it's checking whether this is data. I've said yes it is. It's then going to bring it in, and it said these are the seats and that the X and the Y are both numerical values. Great, so far so good. I'm then going to close and apply that, and then I'm going to apply some changes because that's bringing that data set in. It's detecting relationships, and that's important. So essentially what Power BI has now done is it's gone, are these data sets, are these two tables related to each other? And it's essentially gone, well, hold on, there's a seat there and there's a seat there. Maybe they're the same thing, and which is lucky because they are. So what I'm going to do is just connect those together so that if you have the seat A1 in here, it will bring through the X and the Y value in the coordinates. So that becomes really useful when you start doing what we're about to do, which is create a scatter chart. So here we put in our scatter chart, and what we're going to do is in the x-axis plot our x values, and in the y-axis put our y values, and you'll notice we've got a bit of a grid here already. And so what we're going to do is do a little bit of formatting just to make this look a little bit more like a seating plan. So let's start by getting rid of the title. Then move on to the x-axis. We're going to get rid of the values because they're not important in this instance, and the title because it's not important in this instance. And we're going to set the minimum value to -10, which again just helps with spacing. And the maximum value, I think, is 100. We want to set it to, yeah, about 100. Yeah, and essentially that's just bringing those all slightly closer together and making sure the spacing looks right and all that sort of stuff. Then we're going to go into the y-axis, and we're going to again hide the values, hide the title, set the minimum as -10, but the maximum on this I think is around about 50 in coordinate terms, and there suddenly it looks like we've got a seating plan. Let's minimise that. So the next thing we're going to do is make the markers a little bit bigger so I can actually see what we're doing. And suddenly we have something that is doing a really nice job of looking like seat dots. I'm just going to adjust that layout slightly, and that I think looks okay for a first attempt while talking. I'm going to add some labels on here as well just to make sure it's nice and easy. I'm going to go D, C, B and then A. Let's make that nice and big, and let's make these into size not 54. 54 is far too big, don't use size 54. Size 28, great. Let's move that across, and then I'm just going to hopefully line these two things up so that you can see which rows are which essentially. Obviously if you're doing this properly you'd probably take a bit more time. Let's see if we can minimise that and bring that across. There we go. You can basically see our seating plan. So far so good. Now you'll notice if we hover over the seats, what we get is the coordinate values. So what we want to know is what seat does that actually mean. So we've got down here, we've got tooltips. So what I'm going to do is drag the seat identifier onto the tooltip. So now when you hover over a seat, you see where D1 is, A1 is, A10, and in the middle C6. So now we've got kind of a functioning seating plan, and what I'm kind of then interested in doing is layering data over so I can see kind of what's happening. So what I'm interested in this particular instance is the average days booked in advance. So what I'm going to do is do some conditional formatting using the colour of the markers. So I've gone into the effect, into the conditional formatting. I want a gradient. What fields should we base this gradient on? I want it to be the average days booked in advance. I want the small value. I'm going to want those which have been booked really late to be green, really light pasty green. And I want the seats that have been booked miles in advance to be a luscious red. Correct. So a low value. So if it's been booked on the day, it's going to be light green. If it's booked over 18 days, it's going to be kind of more along the red end of the spectrum. I'm going to click OK for that, and then hopefully suddenly we have something interesting happen. So we look like we've got heat mapping on the venue. And we've also, you'll notice everything's moved around a bit because this legend's popped up. So I'm just going to bin off that legend. And here we have it. We have a dashboard with heat mapping for all the individual seats. Now I can't see exactly how many days in average they were booked in advance, but we're going to again add something onto the tooltip. Average days booked in advance, drop that down, hover over, 10.5 days that seat, 36.13 days that seat. And of course what you can then do is go, well actually I'm only interested in Sam's special show. What difference does that make? You can then say, well actually I'm only interested in the most popular performance, which is the 25th. What difference does that make? And suddenly you can start to move around and you realise that on this particular performance, people either didn't book or booked on the day. There's lots of layers of information you can kind of add on to this. But what you can start to build is a really flexible tool that kind of lets you explore your data in a much quicker, much more responsive way than your box office system will normally allow you. And that's basically it. I'm not sure how long that was. It felt like an eternity to me. So, I mean, God help you. I hope you found this useful and interesting. Drop us a comment or a message on LinkedIn and that'll be lovely. Thanks and bye.